today we're speaking with London Mayor Josh Morgan. Hi Josh, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. So thank you for coming on to talk to us today. So we're going to be eating some food together. I don't know what's coming, but it should be coming soon. Do you have any foods that you absolutely hate?
I'm nervous to answer that because whatever I answer is probably what they'll
True.
bring out, right?
Wasn't thinking about that.
I would say there's a lot of foods I do like. I've never been a huge fan of a few things.
Oh.
This all looks like things I would eat, but tomatoes, maybe not my thing.
Okay, so I don't see any tomatoes on there.
Welcome to Chef Table. So today we have Soviet duck with potato puree. It has radicchio and the demi-glace sauce.
Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank
Enjoy
you.
your meal.
Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, so this looks amazing.
This looks really good.
Yeah, not what I was expecting. Okay, well, shall we dig in for a bite?
Well, we have to try it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Takes a long time to chew meat.
We both took too big of a bite,
Yeah, I was just thinking
especially
that.
for a TV show.
Yeah, I was just so excited though. It's not every day you get a piece of, I'm not sure, steak of some type. That's delicious.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, getting to some of these questions.
Sure.
To start, can you tell me something about you that Londoners maybe don't know?
Sure. I've spoken about this a few times, so some Londoners might know this, some might not. But before I ever got even close to the position I'm in now, when I was younger, I never wanted to be an elected official. What I wanted to be for a long time was like a Disney animator.
Really?
Right. Well, when I was growing up, and I had the opportunity to go to post-secondary, I thought I wanted to be like Pixar, like Toy Story. The first Toy Story had come out, and so I went to Sheridan College. Actually didn't finish my OAC year, left and said I'm going to Sheridan College for visual arts. Went there for a year. I did an amazing program: glass blowing, painting, sculpting, photography, just to experience all the visual arts and creative arts. And I realized there I really love doing that stuff, but more for me. Maybe not so much as a career path. I went back and finished my OAC year, and then I went to Western for political science economics. And so I guess one of the things people probably don't know about me and my background is that I have a strong passion for arts. I still love painting and drawing and doing those sorts of things with my kids, and even on my own all the time. But it's something that is very personal for me and not something that I do a lot of outward sharing of.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, in a fun way, one of the things I did in my office was I thought I really want to showcase youth art. And so in my office, there's some beautiful paintings on loan from Museum London. But in a space where there's this traditional book of guests of the mayor's office sign, above that, each and every month, a different piece of student art goes on display there. And it flips between the different school boards. Can be elementary, can be high school. And people come in and I tell them about this piece of student art. So they see the beautiful pieces of historical art from the City of London, and then they see this piece of like brand new student art, and I get to showcase that. And after a month, I give it back to them with a nice plaque that says this hung in the mayor's office, and everybody who came through it got to see that.
That's
so,
really nice.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
it's a way to recognize like young talent in the
Yeah.
city, much like the people who are serving us food today.
Yep.
It's nice to have that talent in our city, but you got to find ways to celebrate it as well.
Well, exactly. I can imagine as a young student in London, that would be such a cool thing to be able to say that your artwork hung in the mayor's office.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about what's hanging there now?
So there's a few museum pieces. There's one that's Bordenko, which is a 1970s piece from the founder of the Forest City Art Gallery. It originally hung in City Hall, was donated to Museum London. And when I was looking for a large piece, it's one of the ones they showed me, and I learned the history of it, and I thought it would be really neat to have it come back to City Hall and be on display there. There's two Albert Templars, one from 1926, one from 1928, of just painted scenes of London. Nothing specific, no iconic buildings, just back streets and streetscapes. And then the student art this month is actually a hand drawing of an octopus, by an elementary school student, and I don't remember the school off the top of my head, but that's the most recent student piece that I just got.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
how do you choose which piece each month you're going to use?
I didn't. So I was not going to put myself in a position to choose among some really talented. So the school boards, through their own process, get to put it out to their schools and their art classes, and through a process that they determine, they come and present it. And the students come in and they show me the art. They tell me all about it so that I can share that information with others. They come personally to pick it up, and so there's a nice meet and greet that we do as well. And I get to talk to them about their passions, and if they're a high school student, maybe where they're headed next. Sometimes people are headed to Fanshawe, sometimes elsewhere. But it's really nice to get to know some of the young, talented students in our city at the high school and elementary level.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of those things that, a lot of Londoners maybe wouldn't know that kind of thing's happening. Let's take another bite here, because this is really good.
But it is one of the interesting things I get to do as mayor.
Yeah.
Is I get to I have this platform where I can actually take the time to showcase like some talent in our city, and I would say, although I went to Sheridan College, I mean, some of the elementary art is way better than mine, right? There's just some phenomenally skilled visual artists in our city and at the youth level. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So, what is a goal that you have for the next year? Maybe let's go something professional and something personal.
So personal, that's probably easier. Because professional goals are, I've got a whole council, I've got to give some deference to and really thoughtful listening to, and we set goals together. But on the personal side, I think like anyone who's in their 40s is thinking about the years ahead and how you're going to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So I've been doing a lot more walking and exploring of outdoor trails and spaces, particularly through the summer and fall, which has been amazing. A much more active exploration of some of our natural heritage spaces. Eating healthier. I mean, I'm sure the food here is all very healthy, but trying to eat healthier, exercise more, be more mindful of stress and that sort of stuff related to. I have a job that can be very stressful.
Definitely.
And so, just that sort of thing. So, I mean, those are my personal goals, is to keep that up and do that for the year, because I think the healthier and better that I feel, then the more effective I am in all of the roles and responsibilities that I have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they say you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Right. So that's personal. And on the professional side, I mean, I really think that council at the midpoint in their term has the ability to step back and say, look at what we've accomplished, but look at how much we still need to do, and how do we continue to come together as a really effective team representing diverse views from across the city, to find the ways to really mutually respect each other's opinions, their backgrounds, their life experience, and the areas that they represent, in finding some common solutions. And the hardest part of my job is, and this is why it's an important goal for us to collaborate, is those diverse perspectives can often lead to fractious debates or involve personal tensions between councillors. And so it really is a job where you've got to bring the perspective to the chambers, represent well, share your thoughts, respect others' opinions, and then you kind of have to leave it in the room, right?
Yeah.
It's really easy to lose a vote and take it personally. And so part of my more recent goal professionally is to really ensure that council members feel supported as we continue to do really important work, to ensure that they're as effective as possible and that they're not getting tired, burnt out, stressed, frustrated. I know that can happen from time to time, but really, the break coming up is helpful to step back, reset, think again, and then come back together as a really effective team. Because, Londoners depend on us to navigate really tough situations and make really difficult decisions when there are usually no wins or no way to win all around. And so having an effective team is really, it really serves Londoners best, and we make the best decisions when we come together and respect each other's perspectives.
Okay, so let's get into some of these recent decisions. So, of course, we have to talk about property taxes.
Yep.
So those will be going up, I believe, 7.4%. And you brought that down from the 8.7% originally projected. So as Londoners are paying a little bit more every
Yeah.
year, what are people in the city going to get in return for that and feel like they've gotten a good bargain?
Right. So the multi-year. So I want to say a couple things on this. Obviously, what they're getting is the multi-year budget. Really, the most substantive investments were in protective services and public safety, transit, and housing. Those were the largest envelopes of investment, and those are pretty high priorities for Londoners. We know that we have significant challenges with housing and housing affordability. We know we can't do that alone. We know that there are Londoners who do not feel safe in parts of our cities. People who've complained about police response times and looking for a modernization of those protective services, whether it be police, fire, or others. So the budget has those contained. Now the challenge is, you talk about a 7.4%, which yes, I did bring it down from 8.7, but that's still historically very high and is very difficult for a council to navigate, and myself, very frustrating. It works out to be about $200 to $250 more per year for Londoners. And when you think about it in context, we on average collect maybe $4,000 to $5,000 in property tax from the average household. Some people more, some people less.
Yeah.
When you think about giving the federal or provincial governments tens of thousands of dollars in income taxes or sales taxes, those all get collected kind of along the way, right? You don't really see it. When we do property tax discussions, although the amount, at the end of the day is much smaller net, it's very public, very visible, and usually the frustration comes on top of all of those other cost of living pressures. At a time when, municipalities, we only collect, for every tax dollar collected in this country, we collect about 9 cents of it.
Okay.
And yet we're responsible for about 60% of the infrastructure in the country.
Yep.
So we have this tremendous pressure on us. Yes.
How was the food?
It's excellent. It's
so
very
good,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And just hearing for
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So we have this tremendous pressure on us to deliver when the only revenue tools we have are property taxes, user fees, and grants from other levels of government. Those are our three main sources. So if government isn't giving us grants, and we have to balance the budget, and we have to deliver critical services that we're not allowed to not deliver, then it's user fees or property taxes that carry the weight of that. It's a system that is 150 years old. It doesn't make sense for growing and building a modern city. And it's why myself, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the big city mayors groups that I'm involved in, have called on the provincial and federal governments to look at the way that municipalities are financed, because we cannot continue to put just more pressure on property taxpayers for things that are well beyond our ability to fund. And so there's a modernization of the way municipalities are financed that has to happen. It does not need to mean new taxes at all. It's just redistributing where taxes come from and moving from a program application-based system of accessing funds from other levels of government to just something tied to growth and the economy, and something that as a city grows, they naturally get more revenues. Right now, that's not connected, right? If incomes go up, if people spend more money, if the economy does better, that fills up provincial and federal coffers, and it does not come back to municipalities. So it's a challenge for us. And it's tough, because then you face these things like higher than we'd like tax increases.
Oh, thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much.
This one is tiramisu,
Okay.
and housemaid lady fingers,
Okay, yes.
and it has sabayon sauce.
Okay.
Thank you
very
That's
much.
excellent.
Enjoy
Thanks.
your meal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Let's
well,
try a bite of
I haven't
this.
tried
This
this
looks
yet.
really good.
I'm gonna try not to get this on myself.
Yeah, no, me too.
You got your napkin, and
Yeah, I forgot
I
about it at
didn't.
first. Then I remembered what a messy eater I am.
I know. Well, all right. I'm doing another bite because that was really good.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to dig in here to our tiramisu, and we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back in a few minutes. So on that same topic, talking about sources of revenue for the municipality. So you've been trying to engage with the higher levels of government to get some funding. Specifically, they offered or pledged, I should say, 250 million to help with is homelessness, right? And
Encampments, yeah, and bringing people indoors through the winter. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember at a meeting recently you said that they had not been releasing any of that money and that you were going to engage with them. What's that process like, talking with those other levels of government? What hurdles have you encountered in trying to get some of that money released?
Yeah. Well, first off, the federal government's $250 million is a good news story. It may not be all that we need to combat the challenges that we face, but the fact that they've allocated that in the budget was a very good news story. It flowing slowly was my main concern, right?
Yeah.
Because as we approach winter, that is one of our times of highest need for dealing with encampments and people who are sleeping rough and outdoors through the colder months. So the good news is the federal government has now moved quickly. They were trying to negotiate with the province to have them match, but in the absence of a deal being struck with the province, they've moved forward anyways and engaged with municipalities like London and myself. And we've been successful in securing $5 million over 2 years from the federal government to support that need. It was an ask that was going to go on the property tax base, right? It was about another 0.5% increase to property taxes, maybe slightly more than 0.5%. And so this money is very helpful to not have to put all of those costs on property taxes, to not have it have upward pressure more. It won't be enough in the long run, but it does help us with some of our immediate challenges to create more indoor spaces leading into the winter. And council is now actively finalizing that agreement, and then we'll be able to give a little more detail on what that looks like. But we have phenomenal organizations in the city who are ready and prepared to provide more spaces. The funding is always the trick. And ultimately, at the end of the day, encampments, shelter spaces, temporary spaces through the winter, these are none of these are things that any of us want to see.
Yeah.
What we want is people to be actually permanently housed in proper spaces with proper supports. That is what is best for the individuals who are outdoors.
Yeah.
It's what's best for the individuals in the community, whether it be businesses or those in our downtown area or other areas where they can see the impacts of homelessness. It is also good for all Londoners because people who are living outdoors, who do not have access to basic services, particularly those who are high acuity with significant mental health and addiction challenges, consume a massive amount of services in emergency services, land ambulance, contacts with police, social services, that all put pressure on those systems that all of us rely on. So when we do this well, we can see phenomenal results.
No, definitely. And let's get into some of those costs a little bit and funding, because it can be shocking to, I think, the average Londoner to see how far money doesn't go when it comes to city initiatives or government initiatives. So I was thinking about how the 25 million was donated for the hubs program, right? So far we've seen 2 hubs open as of last week. So that's, I think, combined, I think I wrote it down, as about 16 respite beds and 27 transitional rooms in total. So with like 25 million and then other funding, shouldn't we be seeing more beds available and more hubs built?
Yeah, so what we're talking about is not helping just the average homeless person. The hubs and highly supportive housing plan is only for the highest needs individuals. People who have been banned from shelter, people who usually do not find another place to go through the winter, people who have significant mental health addictions or healthcare challenges, people who are consuming a massive amount of resources. So this is not a plan for all homeless individuals. These resources are for those who are the highest needs and consume the most resources in our community. The number of spaces may not seem like a lot, but it's all about flow through. The hubs are just a stop along the way to housing. So often what happens now is people are in encampments, or they're homeless, or they're on the street, they're going to the emergency room, they're going back to homelessness, maybe back to the emergency room, back to homelessness. Maybe someone finds highly supportive housing out of that. Another pathway is usually police contacts or police custody, back to homelessness, and that cycle continues. The hubs are a different place to say, how can we take pressure off of those systems, put people in a temporary space where they can actually get some services wrapped around them, mental health supports, addiction supports, recovery supports, access to employment supports or youth justice supports or justice supports, depending on if it's a youth hub, and then lower their acuity level. And instead of only needing highly supportive housing, the most costly form of housing, actually finding them and opening up pathways to other forms of housing, which are much more effective. The cost can sound like a lot, but what you don't see is the cost of the system today. So an emergency room bed costs about $1,400 a night in London. So what does highly supportive housing do? We opened the House for Hope on Dundas Street. In the 6 months before people got into that highly supportive housing space to the 6 months after, I want to share some comparative stats. So before they were in highly supportive housing versus after. Those in that facility, these are 49 individuals, 86% fewer emergency room visits, 57% fewer days as an inpatient at the hospital, 63% fewer days in custody, and 51% fewer interactions with the police. Some specific examples: there's one individual who's in that highly supportive housing who had 188 days in police custody in the 6 months before, 0 days since being in highly supportive housing.
Okay.
Another person was in the emergency room 106 times in the 6 months before, often transported there by land ambulance, has only been in there 7 times in the 6 months that followed. That's like a 93% reduction. That cost being taken out of the system alone is enormous from that one individual who was consuming 103 days of emergency room visits, let alone the land ambulance to get them there. So people don't see those costs, but they're in our system. When we put people into the proper spaces, we actually take them out of those systems. Their reliance on them goes down. They get proper spaces, and many of these people are now on their pathways to other less intensive forms of housing. That is what we're trying to do. We actually know it works. We have a complete inability to scale it up right now to the level that we need. And so when people say, I look out on the street and I still see homelessness, your plan's not working, what they're missing is if you put those 49 people out on the street, or the 40 people at Elmwood, or the people in the hub spaces that you just mentioned, out back on the street, the problem is worse than it is today. It is getting better, but it is not getting better at the pace that we would like, or the pace that we're willing to fund. The good news is we actually see the province recognizing that this is what works. They announced $400 million to create heart hubs, mainly based on London's hub model, now being able to be deployed across the province. So all this to say, we know the solutions, we know what we need to do, we just need the ability to scale it, and then we can actually start to make a real difference, not just in London, but across the province and across the country.
Well, no, definitely. I think it's one of those things that requires help from all levels of government and community, and it's certainly not all on one level of government or on a city, right? So speaking of the provincial government in particular, so I saw that Doug Ford is kind of calling on mayors to request that he use the notwithstanding clause to kind of take down encampments. But you opposed that, correct? Or you didn't?
Well, I didn't sign the letter, right? So the Ontario Big City Mayors got together, which I'm the vice chair. We had a meeting, and 28 of the 29 of us agreed on a series of things to ask the Premier.
Yeah.
The notwithstanding clause wasn't included in that. So what happened was a group of mayors outside of that consensus-driven group through OBCM said, we're going to go write a letter ourselves and ask the Premier for additional tools because their municipalities may have needed those. I can tell you in London, the notwithstanding clause would not do much for us, right? We tend to move and take down encampments that are unsafe already. We manage them at a smaller size than other communities have allowed them to. We've been able to, for the safety of the individuals in the encampments and the community around them, make adjustments as we go. And so I don't need further tools like that to make significant change in our community. And I wouldn't want to set a false expectation for the residents by saying, give me this tool, it gets given to me, and then they don't see a substantive change and say, well, why didn't you do something with this? I've been very clear to ask about the things that we need to make a difference in our community. We need funding to open more hubs. We need more highly supportive housing spaces. We need the province to help us with open drug use and change legislation so that that is more enforceable on our downtown streets. We need to actually invest significantly in more mental health and addiction beds in this province that people can access affordably and very quickly, right? Because if the police pick someone up, like incarceration isn't always the right place for them, but there is no other place to drop them off. And so the enforceability of open drug use becomes a significant challenge because you need to bring people into the proper facilities to get them the help they need, to help them break their addiction and change their lives. So our asks of the province are invest in those places, right? Other mayors might need the notwithstanding clause.
Yep.
It's not something that I need. It's not a letter I signed, and I'm going to continue to engage with the Premier in collaboration on these other issues where I know what our needs are, and I think we are working very collaboratively with the province. I love the Heart Hub proposal. I think that's great. They're finally putting operating dollars on the table. We're going to see a difference from that. We need to tackle these other things as well.
All right. So let's look forward a bit into the future.
Sure.
For you personally, so you're, I believe, halfway through your term, right?
That's right.
So what's next for you?
Well, we're halfway through the term, so there's still lots of work to do, right?
I should say after the
yes.
term.
Well,
Going
I don't know.
forward
I
from
guess
that.
it depends on.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what we accomplished. I always thought we've only had one-term mayors going back to I think 2010.
Yeah.
And so I always intended when I got into this that I would think on a longer time horizon. And that won't be up to me. That'll be up to the good people of the City of London. And I think they're going to want to see what I can do and what this council can do over the next 2 years before they render judgment on that. I think we've made tremendous progress on actually building housing in this community and creating approvals. We've gone from having absolutely no plan on homelessness. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yes.
Thank you.
And hope so you
Thank you so
enjoy
much.
the food.
It was
Thank you.
excellent.
It was
Thank
so
you.
good,
We've actually gone from not having any plan on homelessness in this community to knowing what works, deploying it to a certain degree, and engaging with other levels of government on scaling it, and seeing our plan replicated, recognized at the province, and then funded across the province as a whole. Amazing place to be. So I think we're in a good spot, and we're going to have to continue to do that work to move forward, and Londoners are going to want to see that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today to speak with us. I hope you enjoyed the food.
The food was excellent. We should have talked about the food more, but
I
these
know.
are important issues, right?
I
But,
know, important issues, but that was.
And I actually feel
steak.
bad because it was really good, and we talked so much that they're taking it away before I'm going
know.
to have to go back
Run
and
back
get
to
the
the
rest of
kitchen.
it when we're done. When we're done this.
Yeah, we'll get a doggy bag.
Yeah.
All right. This is Chef's Table, and this was Food for Thought. Thank you very much.